The light at the end of the day was soft and long, the kind that makes a small town square look gentler than it really is. And the boy stood with a ball under his arm, while the visitor from the stars sat on the low stone wall and tried to look like he belonged there. He watched the baker flip the sign. He watched a cat cross the path like a king. He watched the wind push crumbs across the tiles, and he told himself he was only observing, the way an explorer is trained to do. But his shoulders stayed a little too still and his hands stayed a little too open, the way hands do when they are afraid to hold anything. The boy did not notice those details the way a scientist would, but he noticed something more important. The visitor looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. So the boy stepped closer, close enough to see the thin thread bracelet on the visitor's wrist and the dust on his boots. And in a voice that sounded like any child at the end of a long day, he asked the question that was small and huge at the same time. "Will you come back tomorrow?" The words were light and did not try to be wise, but when they reached the visitor, they hit something inside his chest that training had not named. He lifted his head as if waking. Tomorrow, he thought. And the thought did not feel like a date on a schedule. It felt like a door. On his ship, tomorrow was a set of numbers and a route drawn on a map. Here, in this soft hour, tomorrow sounded like a promise. He did not answer, not because he wanted to lie, but because he was counting feelings the way he used to count stars. He could say yes and risk breaking a rule older than his first journey. He could say no and feel something important go quiet. He looked at the boy and saw no trap there, no test. Only a simple hope shaped into a simple sentence. Around them, the square kept being the square. A bicycle bell rang, a window shut. The clock tower cleared its metal throat, as it always did at the end of the day. The visitor thought about the language of his people, where questions like this do not get asked because ships leave when ships must leave and hearts are expected to follow orders. He thought about the first time he heard the word alone spoken here and how it had sounded like a rock dropped into deep water. He thought about the thin line that now stretched between his wrist and the small hand that had tied the bracelet there, a line with no weight and all the weight in the world. The boy waited the way children wait when they decide that silence is part of the talk. He did not look away. He did not add another question. He simply stood there and let the moment be honest. The visitor tried to find a safe reply, and discovered there was no safe reply, only true ones. He could tell the boy about missions and signals and councils and codes, and the boy would hear them and nod and still not be answered. Or he could speak in the language of this square at this hour, where tomorrow means, "I want to see you again." So he did what he had learned here in a short time that felt long. He breathed. He let the sun warm his face. He let the world be small enough to hold. He said the boy's name softly first, to make the answer belong to someone, and then he said, "I want to." And the truth inside those 3 words surprised him with its size. The boy's shoulders loosened, not with victory but with relief, as if a tight string inside him had been cut. He smiled the way children smile when they choose to believe. "Okay," he said, "then I'll be here." The visitor felt the floor of his life tilt a little, not the way a ship tilts in rough air, but the way a heart shifts when it finds a place to rest. He wanted to add a promise, a strong one, the kind that adults say with loud voices and steady eyes, but he respected the weight of promises here and held the words back. Because wanting is honest and promising is sacred. He studied the boy's face, the crooked hair, the dust across his cheek, the way his fingers tapped the ball like a slow drum, and he understood a simple thing that all his maps had not taught him. Tomorrow is not a time. It is a thread. It ties one hour to the next, one person to another. And the knot is a question spoken with trust. The cat jumped to the wall and rubbed its head against the visitor's knee as if to place a seal on the moment. The boy laughed once, small and bright. The visitor laughed too, surprised by the sound of his own voice when it was not carrying data. Above the roofs, a first star showed itself early, as if it could not wait. The boy saw it and pointed, the universal human sign for wonder. "That one," he said. "If you have to go there, wave." The visitor looked up and understood that the boy did not really want a wave from a star. He wanted a reason to keep looking up. He nodded. "I will try," he said, and this time the words came easier and truer. The baker turned off the last light. The clock tower held its breath between hours. The square thinned, and the air grew cooler. The boy stepped back 2 small steps, as if testing a goodbye that did not break anything. "Tomorrow," he said again, making the word a place they could both walk toward. The visitor watched him go and felt the quiet after footsteps, the way one feels the echo in a small chapel, soft and kind. He touched the bracelet as if to anchor himself to the ground and to the sky at once. He was an explorer with tasks and charts and signals waiting in a language older than this town. But he was also a person who had been seen by a child and asked a question that turned duty into choice. "Tomorrow," he repeated to the empty square. And in that single word, he found a path no machine had drawn for him. A path with a bench and a ball, and a voice that had made time slow down just enough to let his answer grow. In the morning, the world woke slowly, as if stretching after a long dream, and the explorer walked through streets that now felt different, not because the stones had changed, but because he had. He moved like someone learning a new rhythm, like a traveler who suddenly realized the map is not the journey. The sky above him was pale blue and quiet, not like the endless dark he came from, and the warmth of the early light felt like a hand resting gently on his shoulder, steadying him. He reached the square again, earlier than he meant to, not because he feared missing the boy, but because something inside him pulled him there. A gentle tug instead of a command, a feeling instead of a duty. He sat on the same stone wall, hands folded loosely, and for the first time he noticed how people greeted one another here. Nods, small waves, the lift of eyebrows, tiny smiles, signals that said, "I see you. You exist." On his world, recognition belonged to ranks and reports, not hearts. Here, even strangers shared tiny pieces of belonging just by passing near each other. He wondered how many days he had walked through places like this without seeing any of it. Eyes open, but heart shut like a hatch. He was still learning how to be here. He waited, but today the waiting felt different. It did not feel like counting time. It felt like holding space. The boy arrived not running this time, but walking fast, like someone carrying excitement in his pockets and trying not to drop any. His hair was messy again, his shoes untied in that specific way children never seem to notice, and his face had that wide-open expression only morning can give. He hopped onto the wall without asking, as if the space beside the explorer was now a place he belonged. "I thought maybe you'd get here before me," he said, a little breathless. "I tried. But toast takes forever to chew when you're in a hurry." The explorer nodded, unsure whether toast truly slowed time or whether the boy just liked saying things that sounded big. The boy looked at him with curiosity, not the sharp curiosity of a scientist, but the soft curiosity of someone who cares what the answer feels like. "Did you think about yesterday?" he asked. The explorer considered this. On his homeworld, thinking was a cold, clear process. Input, analysis, output. But yesterday's thought had been warmer and slower, like holding a stone in sunlight and feeling the heat soak into his palm. "I did," he said. "And how did it feel?" The explorer paused. He had no easy vocabulary for this. His training offered no word for the quiet ache that had settled in his chest when the boy walked away, nor for the calm that had replaced it when he repeated tomorrow to himself, like a soft promise. "It felt heavy," he said slowly, "and light." The boy nodded, as if that made perfect sense in his world. "Yeah," he said. "Feelings do that. They make your chest full, but not in a bad way. like balloons and rocks at the same time. The explorer looked down, trying to understand how the human heart could hold contradictions and not break. On his world, contradictions led to errors. Here, contradictions made things real. A pigeon landed near them, pecking at crumbs, and the boy pointed at it. "See that? That's how you know you're home. Birds don't care who you are. They just show up, because they trust the place." The explorer studied the bird. Trust. He had studied propulsion and magnetic fields and silent communication signals, but never trust. Trust here looked small, like a child sitting beside a stranger and believing tomorrow exists. "Do you trust me?" he asked quietly. The boy didn't flinch or think long. "Yeah," he said, "because you came back. People who don't mean things don't come back." The explorer looked away, feeling something warm rise in his chest again. Not heat, but hope. Hope is a word his language used only in legends, not schedules. The boy continued, voice light but steady. "My teacher says friends are like doors," he said. "You don't always open them, but it's good to know they're there." The explorer repeated the word door silently. In space, doors meant airlocks, safety, pressure seals, mechanical things that protected bodies. Here, doors protected hearts. A breeze pushed leaves across the square, and the explorer watched them travel. Not straight, but wandering, following whatever air chose for them. That used to bother him. Now it fascinated him. The boy leaned forward a little. "You know," he said softly, "I don't ask everyone to come back. Just you." The explorer turned to him. "Why me?" The boy shrugged. That small human gesture that means, "I don't have big words, but the feeling is true. Because you look like someone who needs someone," he said. "And because when I talk to you, I don't feel invisible." The explorer felt the world tilt again. Not physically, but inside him. Not invisible. Someone had seen him, not as a mission or a mystery, but as a person. He did not know how to respond in a way that matched the moment. So he did the simplest thing he had learned so far. He nodded, slow and sincere. "You are not invisible," he said. "Not to me." The boy smiled, small and true. Then he jumped off the wall, dust puffing at his landing, and turned back with a grin. "Tomorrow too?" he asked, playful and hopeful at once. The explorer did not hesitate this time. He felt the word before he spoke it. "Tomorrow," he said, and the boy ran off, trusting the world again. The explorer stayed, feeling the weight and lift of his answer settle in his chest like a new kind of gravity. Not pulling him down, but anchoring him to something real. He looked up at the sky, and for the first time in all his travels, the distance between stars felt smaller than the distance between hearts had once been. Now he was learning to cross both. Tomorrow was no longer just a measure of time. It was a place, a promise, a quiet beginning. He arrived earlier on the third day, long before the square filled with footsteps and voices, as if his body had learned to move toward this place even before his mind decided. He sat on the same stone wall, not because routine told him to, but because something inside him liked the way the world looked from there. Morning light spread slow and gold across the tiles, and a soft breeze pushed the first leaves of the day across the ground. He watched everything with quiet attention. A shop still closed, a bakery beginning to smell like warm bread, a street lamp flickering before giving up to sunlight, shadows stretching long and lazy. He tried to understand why waiting here felt different from waiting anywhere else. On his world, waiting meant nothing, just a pause in data. Here, waiting felt like holding a door open inside his chest, leaving space for someone small and human to walk into. And then he heard it. Footsteps, not fast, not loud, but light, like curiosity had feet. The boy came around the corner with a backpack slightly crooked, and hair that looked like it had argued with a pillow. He wasn't running today. He was walking with purpose, like someone arriving to finish something important, even if that something had no name yet. When he reached the wall, he hopped up beside the visitor again, like it was the most natural thing in the world to sit beside someone who wasn't from this world at all. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask if the visitor had been waiting. Instead, he dug into his backpack with the seriousness of a scientist preparing an experiment. After a moment, he pulled out a small object wrapped in a napkin. "I brought you something," the boy said, voice simple, as if gifts to strangers who turn into friends happened every day. He unwrapped it and held it out. It was a cookie, slightly crumbled at the edge, with one chocolate chip half melted. "My mom made them this morning," he added. "I took one for you before my brother ate them all." The visitor looked at the cookie like someone examining something sacred and fragile. Food shared freely was not common where he came from. Hospitality there was calculated, a trade, a balance. But here it was just kindness. He took the cookie with both hands, as if unsure how to accept something so small and yet so heavy with meaning. "Thank you," he said, trying to put all the sincerity he had into those two words. "It is generous?" The boy shrugged, swinging his legs. "Friends share things. That's how you know it's real. Friends." The word was still new in his mind, like a tool he wasn't sure how to hold, but didn't want to put down. He studied the cookie a moment longer, then took a tiny bite. The sweetness surprised him. Not just the sugar, but the warmth inside it. The memory of someone's kitchen, someone's morning, someone's care. It was the first thing he had tasted here that wasn't learned or purchased, but offered. It felt different in his mouth and even more in his chest. "Do you like it?" the boy asked, watching him closely. "Yes," the visitor answered. "It tastes like something important." The boy smiled, proud in a quiet way, like he had done something heroic without needing applause. "We can get more tomorrow," he said casually, as if tomorrow was as certain as sunrise. The visitor heard the word tomorrow again, and felt it land softly inside him, less like a time and more like a thread tying him to this moment, to this child, to this place. A dove landed near their feet, pecking at crumbs, and the boy lowered his voice the way children do when they think animals listen better to whispers. "He likes this place too," he said. "Birds know when a place is safe." The visitor watched the bird hop closer without fear. Then he looked at the boy, small fingers resting on the backpack strap, cookie crumbs on his shirt, eyes full of ease. Safe. He wondered if that was what this new feeling was. Not excitement, not mission, not obligation, safety. To sit here, to be seen without disguise, to be asked to come back, to hold a cookie like a gift instead of a resource. "Do you ever think about going far from home?" he asked suddenly, curious how human children understood distance. The boy kicked his heels lightly against the wall. "Sometimes," he said, "but only if I know where I'm going. And only if someone is waiting when I come back." Waiting. The visitor repeated the idea in his mind. In space, waiting was a calculation. Here, waiting was love disguised as time. He looked down at the bracelet on his wrist. The colors slightly faded from sunlight but still holding warmth. The boy noticed and nodded with satisfaction. "That means you have a place to come back to," he said. "Even if it's just here, even if it's just me." The visitor felt that again. A gentle ache, a soft pull, a gravity that didn't drag him down but held him steady. He took another bite of the cookie. It tasted sweeter this time. The boy leaned back on his hands, face turned toward the sky. "When you go back to where you're from," he said softly, "you can tell them Earth has good cookies." The visitor looked up too, sky wide and blue above them. "I will," he promised. And then, quietly, almost like a secret he only just understood, he added, "And I will tell them Earth has something better." The boy waited. "What?" "Someone waiting for me." The boy's smile came slowly, like sunrise warming the horizon. And the visitor, an explorer trained to cross galaxies without blinking, felt something inside him shift again, gentle and real, as if a new world was forming not in the sky but inside his chest. Tomorrow wasn't a maybe anymore. It was a destination, a promise shaped by a cookie, a bracelet, a child's trust, and one simple truth he never learned among stars. Sometimes the smallest place can hold the biggest piece of your heart. He knew before the sun even touched the windows that this day would not feel like the others. There was a stillness inside him that did not belong to space or mission logs. It belonged to something human, something soft, something that made breathing feel like holding both hope and heartbreak at the same time. He walked to the square slowly, as if each step carried the weight of a choice he had not spoken yet. The bracelet on his wrist felt heavier today, not because of its thread, but because of the meaning tied into every knot. He had crossed galaxies without hesitation, but crossing this moment felt harder than crossing stars. The square was quiet when he arrived, the kind of quiet that feels like a held breath. Birds perched on lampposts. A broom brushed dust from a shop doorway. The world existed in small movements, unaware that someone was silently preparing to say goodbye to the first place that ever felt like more than coordinates. He sat on the wall again, hands steady on his knees, but his heart felt like a door swinging in wind. He did not know if the boy would come quickly or slowly, running or walking, curious or quiet. But he knew the boy would come. Promise had weight here, and children carried promises like lanterns. And then, footsteps. Lighter than sorrow, but slower than excitement. The boy came around the corner, backpack hanging from one strap, ball in his hand, face carefully arranged in a way only children and old souls manage when they already understand something painful. He didn't run this time. He just came close and sat beside him, leaving a tiny bit of space. Not distance, just gentleness. The boy didn't ask if he was leaving. He already knew. Children feel departures before they happen, the way animals sense storms. For a while they sat like that, two small figures in a big quiet square, breathing the same morning air. Finally the boy spoke, voice soft and strong at once. "You don't have to say it," he whispered. "I can feel it." The visitor turned slightly, surprised by the calm in that small voice. "Are you angry?" he asked. The boy shook his head. "No. You came. You stayed. That's already a lot." He kicked a pebble lightly. "And you didn't pretend." The visitor swallowed, even though he had nothing to swallow. "Do you wish I had?" The boy looked up at him then, eyes clear, brave, young and old in the same moment. "No. Pretending makes the goodbye bigger. Real makes it softer." The visitor let those words sit inside him. On his world, goodbyes were transactions, efficient, emotionless, complete. Here, goodbye was a thread, not cut, but slipped loose. The boy opened his backpack and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. He placed it in the visitor's hand without looking at him. "I made you another one," he said, "just in case the first one gets lonely." The visitor unwrapped it slowly. Another bracelet. Not identical. This one braided tighter, colors deeper. A small bead in the center like a tiny planet held in place by hope. His breath caught. Not physically, but in that new human way, where emotion sits right behind the lungs and waits to be noticed. "This is the second time you've given me something," he said softly. "It's not a gift," the boy replied. "It's something to hold you here." He tapped his own chest. "Even if you're out there." A quiet humming sound began high above, faint, distant, not yet visible but certain. The kind of sound you feel in your bones before your ears. The boy heard nothing, but he felt the shift in the visitor. Kids always feel when someone is halfway gone. He didn't cry. He didn't cling. He didn't beg. He just reached out and held the visitor's wrist for a moment. Tiny hand over the bracelet, grounding him to earth. "If you can come back," the boy said, "then come back." His voice didn't tremble. It anchored. "But if you can't?" He took a breath that sounded too large for such a small chest. Then don't forget I waited. The visitor placed his other hand gently over the boy's. No words formed. Some truths are too full to fit in sentences. Light began to shimmer near the edges of vision, quiet and soft, like the morning gently lifting someone away. "Thank you," he whispered. A thank you meant for cookies and bracelets and laughter and silence, and the discovery that being seen is the same as being alive. The boy nodded once, slow. "It's okay," he said. "Real things don't end, they just go somewhere." As the light wrapped around him, not swallowing, just carrying, he looked at the boy one last time. The boy raised his hand, not waving goodbye, but holding the air steady, like holding a promise still. And then the visitor was gone, as gently as mist leaving grass. The square exhaled. Life continued. Broom brushing, bread rising, birds hopping, unaware that someone had left and someone had learned how to let go. The boy sat a little longer, hand still raised, eyes soft, but not sad. He looked at the bracelet on his own wrist, then at the sky, and whispered as if the sky could hold words forever. Tomorrow is still real, even if you're not here to see it. And a breeze passed through the square then, warm like a hand, gentle like a memory choosing not to fade. Because when a heart learns someone, space does not erase them. Distance does not mean gone. It only means returning takes time. And the boy, small, brave, certain, waited without waiting. Because faith is not counting days. Faith is knowing someone might come home, even from the stars.